The time.
Good evening. Could we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Could I have a motion to open the public meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals of Sag Harbor for 20 May 2025?
The move.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And just as a note, we'll be following our procedural resolutions, which allow applicants to 10 minutes to present and the public 3 minutes to respond, and additional time can be granted at the discretion of the board. The first item on the agenda are the minutes of the April 15th, 2025 meeting. Did everybody have a chance to read through the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, I found a lot of typos and mistakes, and I've passed those on to Carrie, so if nobody has any other comments.
I can, yeah.
Okay, so can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the April 15th, 2025 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals?
Motion to approve.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great, thank you. Next on the agenda is 180 Madison Street. Great, good evening, you can proceed.
Representing 80 Madison Street LLC. All right, so since our last meeting, I'm happy to say that we have eliminated 2 of the requested variances. One is variance number 9, which is the mechanical setback for the proposed ADU. In speaking with the general contractor, he assured us that he doesn't need, he can make it make the mechanical equipment fit in a conforming location. So that variance is eliminated. The other variance that has been eliminated is number 8, which was to construct a dormer to that proposed ADU. That really has just been value engineered out of the project, so we're not doing that. And those 2 updates are reflected in the updated survey that was sent to you and the updated site plan S1 that was sent to you last week. Another variance number 7. I was hoping that I could come here and telling you that we were going to be able to eliminate that one too. That is that 300-9.12.E.5 about accessory dwelling units and permitted front yard widths. Unfortunately, I've got the Board of Trustees hearing last week. I guess the appeal is all written up and they're ready to vote on it, but apparently there's some sort of hold up with the county giving their approval.
Suffolk County, yeah, Suffolk County.
Yeah, so that is for, that's still in our proposal here.
To require the
Great,
Okay, then looking at a few other things here that we've updated or clarified. There was a concern about the parking for the proposed ADU and whether or not in the house as well, whether or not the parking was suitable for 2 cars. I have shown that updated on the site plan. It's also reflected on the survey that basically our plan here is to have 1 car on the other side of an on-grade walkway leading up to that accessory dwelling unit. And I just want to show you, yeah, there it is, that photo there, which is, I think, very telling because you can see in the existing parking lot, there are 2 cars, one of them is mine, but it's the homeowners, and a big, I don't know how many gallon dumpster there is in the middle. So there's ample room there for the required 2 cars to park. Really, with that in-grade walkway, if somebody needed to park 3 cars, they could do that.
so you're going to maintain the stoop roof?
Right, we're still
Okay.
maintaining the scoop through. But,
Okay.
it was hard for me to figure out what to really call that, because it's not really a stoop, it's really in grade.
Right.
The roof is, I mean, it would be the same as like a park, it's park under Porto shares about that, although it's obviously not nearly as grandiose as that. Second, thing that came up was just clarifying the front yard setback for the swimming pool, which will be 35 feet, and that is reflected on the updated survey. And then I believe the third thing, that was, brought up was the extent of the pool fence, the perimeter of the pool fence and proposed screening, and that is reflected on both the, survey and the, site plan. So it's a, mixture of, I'll refer to my notes so I don't say the wrong thing here. Mixture of wire fence and wood fence, and also perimeter or horn beam as additional screening. Removing the sort of trend here in Sag Harbor seems to be moving away from green giants and arborvitaes as screening and going to more on the line of privet or horn beam. So that's what we're proposing here.
Could we request that the fence or the gate that's adjacent to the new ADU be solid so you can't see through to the swimming pool from the street?
Sure, that was the plan, but yeah.
Okay.
I can add that.
Can we add that as a? I think that was it, right?
Yeah, I think there were the only things, I mean, there was, the main changes to the house with the dormer and the bump out,
Right.
but they're de minimis compared to other things that this board has approved.
So do any of the board members have any questions or comments? I think that
Not me.
he's resolved all the outstanding questions.
Yes.
Great. Is there anyone from the public that wants to speak to 180 Madison Street? Anyone on Zoom?
Nobody on Zoom.
Okay, great, thank you. So everybody feels pretty comfortable with all of this?
Yes.
Everybody? Okay, great. Could I have a motion to close the public hearing for 180 Madison Street?
So moved.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great, thank you. Could I have a motion to direct our attorney to write a favorable decision for 180 Madison Street, which includes a solid pool gate adjacent to the new ADU?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you very much. Yes. Yes. Next on the agenda is 92 Bay Street.
Good evening, board. Catherine Bowers, right from Street, this we see with the number street, like applicant on 92 State Street. The last month, applicant hosting renovation, addition, a swimming pool and a garage. The feedback from this board, the neighbors, applicant gave several revisions to the plan, including moving the pool. Moving the pool back to the front property line, exceeding the front yard setbacks. Reducing the pool length from 30 feet to 25 feet. Reducing the proposed 2-car garage to a 1-car garage. Pushed it inland to meet 20-foot setback from what was initially proposed around 15. We also applicant rotated the garage. This does a couple things. It allows the applicant to screen the garage from the street and provide a lot more on-site parking. which was raised as a concern at the last meeting. We also, applicant reduced the proposed coverage from over 28% to about 22%. Reduced building coverage from 18.6, 16.8, which both numbers are well under the permitted coverage amounts. I know there was also some letters submitted, a concern about IA system. We already have health department, and I can assure this board it is an IA system. We can submit that to the village for review. An applicant, and I submit to the board that the proposed improvement will have a positive effect on the neighborhood. For a couple reasons. I know that parking is a concern. Anytime you drive by this property, you see several cars just parked on the road. Right now, there's a very narrow, small parking lot. Again, we are expanding the parking and having a garage. An IV system will be installed. And an underground change will not be produced by the variances, nor will it create a detriment to nearby properties. The pool is not going to be visible due to, screening and fencing. And the garage, the extent it's visible, it is in keeping with the village. Many people do have garages in what would perceived as the rear yard on this property is the location. The front door faces State Street. So if you're going by the property, it doesn't look like we're putting a garage. If the board has any questions at this time, be happy to answer them.
I had one note on here, and actually, just to clarify for the public, because there have been comments about what's happening to the house. The house is not at all part of any of these variances. It's all correct. I mean, there are no variances requested for the house.
We have noticed the section of the code where if you are increasing a non.
Okay, so that's part of the,
But requires no pyramid, no setback on the back. And it's a modest, it's like 300 square feet improvement, but we haven't
Right.
noticed.
right, okay. Just so that the public understands that basically the house is compliant with all of the zoning laws. It's really just the swimming pool and the garage. The one question that I had though was the proposed stone patio on the street side of the swimming pool. There's no setback on that,
No,
and there should be.
that's right.
So that was one thing that was missed. And the other thing is, we will need a survey reflecting all of this, right? So just so you, yeah. So that becomes another variance.
It does.
For the patio,
Yes, because it's, I mean, unless it's pea gravel, then it's not considered,
yeah, I believe that's set in sand.
but that doesn't matter. It either has to be grass or pea gravel. If it's some kind of solid surface, it's now counted as a structure. That was the only thing that I noticed that was.
Right.
Mhm.
That grade patios are permitted in front yard.
I don't know, Liz, do you?
I can't find a survey. for this one. You did give us.
I have an initial survey, but we don't have an updated one to reflect these changes.
Okay, sorry.
Mhm.
I'm looking at the wrong one.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure,
Did you say the pool has shrunk in size?
correct. Initially, it was proposed at 30 feet.
Oh.
So
Isn't this still,
35.
isn't this still 30 feet?
Oh, this one is 30.
30, well,
Yeah. Sorry, I would need to reference. I know it shrunk in size. but
It's still
it's
16 by 30. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, it is. Well, they took, no, the corners were still out, always out.
Yeah, it cut in, but it cut in prior.
Right.
We still have moved it to exceed the front yard setback, so it's proposed at 35 and 6 inches.
Right, it's definitely further from the side yard.
The only other issue is that on the site plan, that dimension is to the water and actually it needs to be to the coping. Because the pool is a structure and the structure of the
Right.
pool is the coping.
Yeah, this hits,
It looks like it hits the water on the corner there.
it does.
So it may, well, it's gonna be, I mean, you can still shift it a little bit to make it compliant to 35 from the coping.
okay. I know this has been an issue with with the building department for the past 3 building inspectors and have been
Right.
to the water line, so is.
But if you read the code, swimming pools are a structure and water isn't a structure. So it's really the structure of the swimming pool. That's what the definition of the pool is in this code.
Mhm.
So we followed that rule.
Okay, the building inspector, at least, okay.
Try to,
That came up on the previous application for Madison Street.
180 Madison, yes.
And the surveyor put it to the water and we all, as a board, spoke with council and it is considered structure, the wall thickness. So the pool's measured to the coping, not the inside.
Okay,
I think it means we adjusted over precedent, because precedent, I think you're correct, it was to the water line, but.
Well, in the past,
That's what I'm saying.
depending on the building inspector, it's been
Yeah,
to the, you know. So anyway, our opinion of this board is that it's to the coping. So, I mean, it's just a minor adjustment here.
yeah, we would still be able to meet the 35.
Right,
back
exactly,
to the coding.
yes.
Right.
So we need a survey, we need a dimension and maybe a variance to the proposed stone patio.
It's 28 feet to the corner.
patio.
Yeah,
All right, I think patio. And then, yeah, there's the, okay. There's the down. There's a section, right? Patio. Front yard.
Oh, in the front yard, you mean, versus, and so we just require, you're saying like 15 foot side yard setback?
Yeah, but I'll.
Although, yeah,
Okay.
just show this up either way.
I don't know, do any other board members have any other questions?
Find out.
I mean, I personally, I think this is much better.
Yeah, I do too.
Than,
I appreciate the
original.
changes that were made.
I mean, it pushes the garage farther from the street. It diminishes the effect of the garage on the street. Any other comments, Val? You have anything?
And they're increasing on-site parking.
Right.
I do question, so this relocated shed with shower inside. Is
Yeah.
part of your application.
Yeah, that's actually a contributing structure on the property. We did a site visit with Mr. Student Roth.
Mhm.
And it's listed in the book of the contributing structure. It's falling over on the property line at the moment, so we're scooting it away and we're keeping the integrity of the structure, but it is going to contain the shower that'll essentially be used as a pool house.
And at the moment, it's, as I recall, it's very near the property line. Anyway,
It's flipped on.
on the property
It's-
line,
It's
right?
falling over on the property line.
Okay,
So it's actually not conforming, and it's more conforming than it was.
Yes, I still had to notice it because we are moving it.
Right.
But it's proposed to be more conforming than it currently is, and again, it's a contributing structure, so. we'll keep it.
I also think that the fact that the neighboring accessory structure is opposite it is a mitigating factor. It's not gonna be in anybody's view.
Yeah, there's a structure here and then there's a pool here as well.
Right.
how does ask a question, how does the board feel on page A201? The applicant mentioned the 50% rule. It's a historic structure. And it looks like that entire half of the building is being demolished.
No, we're not demolishing. I'm sorry, what page are you on?
This is the bottom of sheet A201. Existing elevation east. So,
Yeah, so that is part of the primary structure that is being renovated.
Mhm.
So the existing structure is broken up into kind of 3 parts. There's the initial structure that's 2-story, and then there was a later addition of 2-story, and then a last addition of a 1-story. They are doing a renovation and a minor addition, but they're not, demolishing the house.
And you said the increase in square footage for the whole thing is only,
It's about 300. We done a site visit with Christina Roth, we had a discussion and a public hearing, so we are going through the ARB for the house.
It was permitted in the front yard, but it doesn't eliminate the setback requirements.
Okay,
So you just don't need the variance to allow accessory structure in the front yard.
okay.
That's the distinction.
Right. Well, that's more a conversation for the ARB, but looking at your proposed design, the existing, there's no trace of the existing structure left.
The rear one, the flat roof addition, and we've gone to the site with student Roth, and he's identified each, era of the construction has occurred in, and this flat rear addition that's not part of the contributing structure, and again, we are going in front of ARB, been an ongoing discussion.
So he made that distinction. It's
Yeah.
not historic.
It is not as historic as the main structure. It was a much later addition. If it's
Right.
50 years or older, I don't know. I think definition of historic is 50 years.
Well, the language to describe this usually talks about the addition, and if the addition is considered historic, it'll clearly state if it's done after
Yeah.
the original house, so.
I know the architect is working on more revisions to this for the next ARB meeting, including specifying, each original window, the ones that were in, getting more specific in each round.
Just pointing out that there's no remnant of this one-story addition left with your proposed construction.
Again, look, I can bring up a picture of the house, like it does not match the rest of the buildings. It's kind of like it's flat on there, the flat roof. It's the proposed renovations and additions going to make this house look more homogeneous thin.
That's really in their bailiwick, not
Hmm.
ours.
It isn't because it's the 50% for an expansion, to the house, but the house is,
Because they're demolishing it, then they have to start.
no, they're not demolishing. They're adding on, but they're adding 500, how much?
300.
No, I'm sorry, 300.
Well, don't you have to
Yeah.
to get from here to here, don't you have to? Isn't
No,
this-
they're gonna just tear the roof off and build up, correct?
Yeah, but you know what really gets done, there's nothing left of the original, all the wood's gone,
Well, not-
everything.
Not
We're seeing it happen
necessarily.
all over the village.
Yes, that does happen, but not necessarily. I mean, that can be.
Okay,
a
I'll let
that-
it go, it's not worth
but
anything.
That can be a condition
I
of
think the
our,
architecture review board should start looking at that.
but that can be a condition of our approval too, if we want to do that, because we,
Well,
Are weighing
we shouldn't
in
get
on
involved in it,
50%.
should we? Because it.
no, we're involved because we have to approve it because of the 50% rule. That's directly related to the house.
Well, then, I think we do need to start because I'm seeing it time after time where it's supposed to be a renovation, but there's no trace left of, there are 2 of them on my street that just got done in the last year. There's no trace at all. No siding, no studs, no windows. There's nothing left of the original house.
With this house, the ARB actor has to go back to the original shingles, so it's kind of pretty much on there now, but.
So what would we specify?
well, the plan,
Just say-
this set of plans has no description in terms of scope of work, so I would find that it's difficult for the ARB or anyone for that matter to look at this drawing and say that you've maintained the original integrity of the first floor. It's basically gone. There's 2 doors there's 3 windows. And there's a single window. And none of that exists in the top of, this is page 8201 again. It's been obliterated, and if it's on the record as a historic house and it has a historic addition, that's an important consideration because these houses are disappearing and you've got an addition being put on this house that rivals the existing home. And it's just something to consider because that's what the 50% rule is about, is preserving these historic houses.
Yes, and I can say, you know, we've spent hours in front of the ARB, we've spent a good amount of time with Mrs. Law on the site, specifying
Right.
what we're keeping and not keeping. And next round, the plan is going to include that information down in each window.
Well, if they could be included on these drawings as well, please.
Well, I
We've
have,
asked applicants to do that, to say what the narrative is in terms of scope of work. That this roof is coming off, for example, or these walls are being taken down. There's nothing here to describe, and as it moves to the next board, they have no maybe insight as to that unless you were to tell them. And this is a building permit application, so it should have that narrative. When the building inspector goes to this property and someone says, where's the house? Your drawings should clearly state what that scope of work is, and there's nothing, there's no notations on these plans.
It's my understanding, and I could be wrong, it's my understanding those notes are added when the construction set.
This should be a construction set because you've applied for a building permit. And as it goes through that department, it's rejected with a turn down letter. So these drawings that come before this board should have notations on them and say what the scope of work is.
But that's not how building inspector is
Right,
doing it right
right, but
now.
it should
The
be,
applicant.
it should be, the applicant, the onus is on the applicant to describe what that work is. Because if these drawings go in front of the ARB board, there's nothing here which is describing that scope of work. And that's important. And I don't believe that this board should be passing through drawings to the ARB without that information.
so we can, you're gonna be coming back to us with a few different corrections. And we'll just request that information, the information that you're gonna be providing to the ARB beyond these plans, so we can tell exactly what's going to be demolished on this house, because you're gonna have to remove the roof at least to do.
And the
work that-
foundation.
Well,
It's gonna be a new foundation.
so the roof,
So it
the
is.
building gonna be
It's nothing.
jacked
It's
up.
being demolished.
It's being lifted.
Yeah, there's no foundation. It's this, that portion of the historic house is being demolished. And that's what's important to note as it goes to the next board.
So,
That in itself needs a permit, right? And they're not applying for permits because they're claiming that they're not demolishing. I don't mean this application,
Right.
but it's happening all over the world.
Right.
yes.
And that's the intent of the 50% rule, is to weigh the pros and cons of what's being done to these historic houses.
So, do you have any, further? I'm gonna open up to the public for just see if there are any comments. Okay. Is there anyone from the public that wants to address 92 Bay Street? Yes, could you step forward? Great, thank you. Can you were here last time, correct?
I was.
Yes.
David Burge, 84
Right.
High Street.
Great.
And once again, thank you for your time, and I'm just gonna come to the, I'm gonna show you a picture. Last time I was here, I said the as-built survey was incorrect.
Right.
And I don't see an updated survey that reflected the actual conditions, and thank you very much, Bill, for saying we need to know what is there and what's gonna be changed.
So we're awaiting the
Yeah,
survey,
This picture
but
shows
yes.
the
Yeah.
structure. Here, they say existing two-story dwelling, that is incorrect.
Right.
So we're looking at drawings that are incorrect.
right.
So. So
Thank you.
as an architect, when I don't see drawings and they tell the story, it makes me a little frustrated as well. And also, as I said in
Can
my.
you send that picture to the Carrie when you have a chance?
Sure.
For the record, thanks.
And I have other pictures that show the exact configuration.
Which is the one you showed the board.
And so, as I said last time, the zoning board of appeals, it's for appeals, it's for hardship. We have a property that's been around for hundreds of years, it's been this way for hundreds of years. High Street has been like this for hundreds of years, there aren't any garages other than one, Trouble High Street has got a garage, even none, that we have. So what is the hardship that they need a garage? What is the hardship? They need a pool in front. Well, you want everything, which you don't ask, you don't get. Well, if maybe there's some element of this application. In a pool, I understand that, for the garage. What is the use of the garage? It's just taking up like that. So what's the hardship? No, it's a very appropriate answer. So thank you for your time.
Okay, great, thank you. Anyone else?
Quick comment, hardship is not a factor in ZBA applications.
Right, yeah.
For area variances,
This is not an area variance.
it's an area.
In our world, it is considered an area variance. So is there any other person in the public?
There's somebody
No,
else.
somebody on Zoom? Okay, 92 Bay Street. Could you state your name?
Yes, my name is Ted Porter and I live,
Address?
can you hear me?
Yes, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Ted Porter, 69 High Street. And 69 High Street shares a property line with 92 Bay Street.
Great. Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great, thank you.
So I thank the ZBA Board of Appeals for letting me speak tonight. And while I appreciate that someone wants to renovate 92 Bay Street and acknowledge that improvements to 92 Bay Street will likely increase the value of my own property, I have serious questions about granting variances for this project. I cannot imagine why someone should get variances to build a pool and a garage and additional square feet and lot coverage just to be able to increase the resale value of a property. As an architect, I renovated my own house at 69 High Street, next door to 92 Bay Street. My property is 0.22 acres. 92 Bay Street is 0.423 acres, almost twice as large as my property. Because I did not think I had a right to a variance, I had to choose between a pool and a garage, and I chose a small pool in my backyard. I did not seek a variance for any aspect of my renovation. I have worked on 2 additional projects in the historic district recently, and my clients did not seek variances for either of these projects. I want the board to please give me good reasons why this project should merit variances. And I'd also like to point out that the idea of just shifting the pool, that really wouldn't work because there's only a 16 point, I believe, 8-inch setback on the side yard. And so the pool would need to get smaller again to still meet the, I believe, the 35-foot setback to the structure of the pool. Further, when I did a project on a corner lot, the side yard, which would be the yard between 92 Bay Street and the adjacent house on Bay Street, was considered a side yard and not a backyard. So the garage would appear to need a 15-foot setback rather than a 10-foot setback. I may be wrong about that, but I had to move my client's garage 5 feet in order to comply with the zoning as defined at that time by the building inspector, and in order not to grant, not to ask for a variance. So I close in just saying, I hope that you can give me reasons why variances are legitimate and assure me that these variances, if granted, do not set damaging precedents for future projects that come before this board. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else, Carrie?
I don't see anybody on.
Okay. Great. So board members have any more questions or comments?
I just want to comment on the member of the public's comments, which is, I'm not sure of the logic. If his property is half the size of this one, And he wanted to do both a pool and a garage and he had to choose. I'm not sure the logic that this property that is twice the size could then have both potentially with the help of a let me just finish, with the help of variances.
May I speak?
If
May I
Dave,
give my logic?
You have to get to let me finish.
You can't, this isn't a discussion, it's a public hearing.
And so I'm having trouble understanding the full logic of that argument, because it's not. Doesn't seem, I mean, people have garages throughout the village, people have pools, including this gentleman, throughout the village, and he does have quite the amount of property, so I'm just not sure I'm following the logic of his argument.
Okay, right. Any other board members have any other
No.
questions? Did Mr. Porter want to reply?
If I may just say, my logic was not that the property at 92 Bay Street isn't big enough to have those additional amenities. It's that why does it need variances to achieve those amenities? That was
It's
my-
mainly because of the difficulty of the property. It's not a rectangle. And it has two front yards. So there are just, I mean, just to do what they want to do, there are physical realities to the site. That's the crux of it. It's not a regular rectangular lot sitting on a street. It's a triangular shaped property with two front yards.
Perhaps they should have gotten a different.
We very often grant variances in these cases with two front yards for swimming pools in front yards. It's nothing here is atypical. We
Potentially precedent.
precedent setting. I mean, because in fact, this swimming pool in the front yard meets a setback that most very often swimming pools that we've granted in front yards don't. So there isn't really anything precedent setting unless I'm missing something here, but I don't know. Val, can you, there's nothing precedent setting about it, those two things.
No,
It-
no, I think there's mitigating factors with each property is unique, so uniqueness here. In terms of the distance, this is adequate, but I think to the gentleman's point, he's bringing up a concern, legitimate concern. Pools in front yards, garage in
Right.
front yard. And as you've pointed out, it's a tricky property.
I mean, there may be better ways to arrange this. That's up to the applicant.
Well, that begs a question with the 5-part factor. This is the design, it's a hardship. In some, it's a self-created hardship by the applicant.
Self-created difficult.
Yeah, but
But it's not self-created.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
the, but it's, you know, that's arguable for every application.
that's
Right.
right.
You know,
Yeah,
I just remind the board, you don't have to answer questions. That's not, that you're.
Right.
supposed to
No,
hear
no,
from the
no.
public,
Right.
Consider their comments and then deliberate.
yeah.
Yeah. And one of the factors is, can this be altered in such a way that they could lessen the variance request? And they've done that with a 2-car, it's gone down to 1 car.
I mean, I think that we'd, obviously like the swimming pool adjusted so that it meets that setback. And I don't know if the size of if they want to do the garage, if the size of the garage can be reduced. I don't know if that's important to somebody. I don't know what other board members are feeling about the whole concept of this. I mean, it's better than it was.
I'm fine with the way it is now, except I would like to revisit the 50%.
Of the
Because I am
house.
concerned about people not having to go there because they claim they're not demolishing anything when really they are
Right.
there.
Well, we will definitely add the details.
Mhm.
Thank
for
you.
next
Yeah.
meeting.
It's a graphic standard which should be inclusive. So,
It was my understanding that those were later on after getting through the process, but if that is not the case,
it's
we
not
will.
really, because we see applications where they say they're doing in addition to the house, but without describing the scope of work and you'll find a home that's been dismantled. Literally, the second floor being taken off, and there's no description within the building permit application or the drawings that say, we're taking the roof off of the historic home, and that's an important thing, so.
Alex, do you have anything else to add? Okay.
Cover a lot on the ground.
I think what I'd like to hear about the addition is how much of the original is going to be maintained. By that, I mean boards, stones, windows, because what we're finding is that everything, the entire structure disappears, but yet it was supposed to be a renovation. And sometimes the original structure stays there while it's all being built around it, and then the original structure is taken out. That happened twice on my street in the last year. And had we known that, when it came before us, we probably or possibly would have come up with a different decision. So that's why we're asking that more and more frequently now.
Great. So I guess we need some more information, and if there are any further adjustments you can make to, you know, further mitigate the conditions of the setbacks from the streets, that would be a good thing.
What about last point? The pool patio setback isn't listed within the.
Right, and that's something we'll need to have.
Right.
And I personally, I don't know if that side of that building is the appropriate place for a pool patio. I don't know, that's something for you to discuss with your
It was
client.
originally on the other side and they moved it
Right.
to push it back, so.
But where the path is, you could have a patio
Right.
between the
Right.
building and and it might be a more appropriate place than, you know, that on that street side.
Agreed. These are proposed trees to screen the pool on your plan. Yep.
But there's also perimeter screening, and I guess we'd need to know, I don't know, is there something that tells us what the screening is proposed to be? I know you have a fence,
Yes.
and then there's green stuff around it, so I guess we'd want to know what the fence is and what the green stuff is. Just because if we are going to approve this, we do want it to be fully screened so that you can't see the pool from the.
Street.
Yeah.
Any other comments or additional things from the board? No. No. Okay, do you need anything else from it? Nope. Okay, great. Could I have a motion to adjourn 92 Bay Street to the June 17th meeting?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda is 12 Amity Street, and I am recused from this, so I'm gonna let Val take over.
All right.
Oh. Thank you. Good evening, Howard.
I'm gonna make a motion to, did we open the public hearing on this? This was, yes.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. So I'd like to, can someone please make a motion to open the public hearing for 92 Bay Street?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, please state your name for the record and
Thank you. My name is John Bennett from Institute of Living in Southampton, New York. Probably ranking probably with me on Zoom, I'm not sure. So here's my designers. The contractor, they have known that they'll need to testify.
Say, John,
Yes.
she's having trouble hearing you. You gotta speak up. The microphone's above you.
Yeah, we have a weird.
Above your head.
So is it trying to do better with the end? Thanks.
This is,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Excuse me, just for the record to correct. This is for 12 Amity Street,
12 Amity Street.
Yes.
92 Bay.
not 92A.
Okay.
Yes.
So the property's and now we start down. The property's a non-conforming 5,230 square foot parcel, which, as you all know, is limited by the 2,500 square foot GFA or FAR. The parcel, as you can see on the survey, that was in the Saskers, maintains a 7.2 feet setback from Amity Street. There's an attached screen porch in the front, you can see on the survey, and I'll try to quickly take you through some of the picture drawings. But there's a pony wall, and on top of that are screens. And essentially what this is we're trying to put glass where the screens are, trying to close it and make it an additional habitable space, 139 square feet. De minimis is for I think it's fair to characterize this as a de minimis request. We're putting this, we're housing an existing portion of the house at the same step back. We're putting windows where the screens are. So I think there will be, it would be impossible to suggest there's any impact to that. I do have to, the lawyer in me cannot help but bring to the board's attention your section 300-2.10.2, continuance of non-conforming building a structure that is devoted to conforming use may be enlarged, reconstructed, structurally altered, restored, repaired in whole or in part, except the degree of non-conformity shall not be increased. We're not increasing any setback here. We're gonna hold that 7.2 foot setback as it relates to Amity Street. And no increase on the side because everything's gonna be housed within that screen porch. So candidly, I think there's a strong argument that the project should not, we shouldn't even have to be here because we're not increasing at all the degree of non-conformity. We're holding that 7.2 foot front yard setback, which I'll show you is rather typical on the street. But in any event, I would be remiss not to put that into the record. But the building inspector said we need the variance over here. We did submit architectural plans today that was advised, and I know you have the one rule, which makes sense, but there's nothing new. I just wanted to make sure the way that the project was described. For example, the first floor plans on the project, on the plans that were submitted, had the new enclosed area still called out as a green porch, so that's obviously not correct. And then I wanted David Saskis' survey be corrected because the prior survey suggested that we're putting in a front yard addition to 7.2. And now he properly says proposed enclosure of existing screen porch on existing foundation, which is really what's going on here. This is not like a porch that's constructed with an independent foundation, supporting columns, often surrounded by lattice or screening. This is a full foundation underneath it. So if you look at, for example, A003, is a set of photographs. And you can see on the photograph to the left, the foundation goes all the way. Foundation wall goes all the way to that 7.2 foot like second. So it's not simply flat the porch onto the roof.
You actually see it on the front photo.
And you see it on the front photo. Thanks. And then A1004, you can see that brick foundation runs all the way to the front, that 7.2 front yard setback. And again, it's a beautiful part of the house that we're not enlarging or increasing. You've got the pony walls that surround the screens in the valley. I hope I'm using that especially correctly. I know it's not a knee wall because it's not an attic, so I was thinking maybe it was a pony wall. But then there's a fully screened roof over it, and ultimately and below that.
There's a crawl space connected to the basement of the residence, to the porch, the street porches, a full height of pavement. Beneath the rest of it, and you can see the good foundation. Under sheet 1A101, I wanted the board to be able to see this, cut this up a little bit, we're not changing any of the conditions, but you can see what we did is we overlaid the existing screen porch and the proposed enclosure over the folded into the area of the existing porch. You can see runs through an existing exterior basement wall. So I think it's not like something grafted a house, an independent porch on it, which I think really takes this away from the type of application where somebody would come in and say, I just want to take what is a porch, is a wooden porch on posts and expand out on that. Really what we're doing is expanding into changing the nature of an existing portion of the house. So I think that's very important. In terms of the setback, I have an aerial, which is, I won't go, I know you have a minute time limit. What I did is we showed the subject property, aerial, and then we showed some properties on either side, and you can see that this is a very front yard setback. I'd like to do this. Wait, just a minute. The board member wants to comment. There's no change in the character of the neighborhood, by its very design. We're gonna put this rework the existing porch to make it enclosed. And the reason I gave you the aerial is to see that these setbacks are the required front yard setback is honored more in the breach than in the actual than under the field. So we just submitted those for clarification. So I just want to take you quickly through the standards, try not to bore you. The corner of the existing porch of the interior space will not have any undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. No expansion of the existing structures, not 1 square foot. Only 100, what did you say, 139 square feet to be changed from open screen porch to habitable space. The applicant is that the residents along the north side of Amity Street, we had 11th Street, 8th Amity Street, 108 Madison Street, maintained existing setbacks to the front yard, which are virtually the same, if not less. The enclosure of the portion of the existing porch will have no impact on the character of the neighborhood. It can't be achieved by some other method. We're looking to do this in the front yard, so there's really no other place to put it, and we're staying within the conforming, pre-existing non-conforming. The application was not drafted by my office. It says that the variance is substantial. I just involve deference to the original draft of the variance application. It just doesn't make any sense at all to me. This is accurate. The minutes is just putting 139 square foot of habitable space into an existing footprint which sits on a full foundation and is surrounded by knee walls and exterior walls, which essentially, but for the fact that there aren't windows there, would be part of the house. Type 2 action under SECRE. Question: is the difficulty created or not created? I always take a long view of these things. It's a pre-existing non-conforming house. You know, is the difficulty self-created? No, it's all before it's coming. My definition of that is you adopt what you pass along what you had there. It's a pre-existing non-conforming house created well before zoning. I'm not trying to increase the size of it. I don't see that that's a self-created hardship. It's really an attempt to utilize what's there in the existing footprint, existing setbacks, in a manner that is not inconsistent with zoning. So I don't want to be, I respectfully think it would be impossible for anyone to identify any negative impact. There's no bathroom being imposed. This is a sunroom and an expansion of a foyer with a coat closet. the benefit to the applicant is obvious, and I can't define a negative, a detriment either to the neighborhood or to the public at large. Love to answer any questions or respond to anything you have.
I do have some comments. Your opening statement about this not possibly requiring a variance. This addition, had it been on the side yard, you're putting living space that's closer to an adjacent property, living space which could make noise, affect quality of life. And that's probably the reason why, if you're questioning why the code is requiring a variance for this, that's it. It's living space within a non-conforming location. And, you know, quality of life is a concern. If windows are open, you've got a television in this room. And had this
Not like it
been,
happened now.
yeah, right, correct. Well, we do have noise ordinances as well.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
So all I was saying, and I don't mean to interrupt you, if I might apologize, I was just saying that there's a rational alternate
Right.
interpretation of it, which I'm here because Tim thinks that I have to be here, and that's why I'm here. But as I said, the lawyer in me can't help but put forward the fact that I think there's another rational alternative interpretation of the code that would not require a variance. But I understand what you're
Right.
saying, and I understand what the building inspector is.
Well, it's important to make these distinctions because as these applications appear before the board, we have to be careful in looking at why a variance might be granted where someone else would say, what's the distinction? And we need to make those distinctions here. So you've raised some valid points. This home has been renovated in the past, which is why the foundation may exist below this porch. Historically, they would not have done that. It's very evident from looking at the outside of this home. If you look at the gable ends of this house, it's had dormers which have expanded to the extent that the rake boards on this home have disappeared. So it's lost some of its historic integrity. It had been renovated at one point, but we're here to talk about the 7.2 feet distance of living space from the street. We can discuss among the board or we can take it to the public and this will ask if there's anyone in the public.
Or we can talk with one board first or after the public.
Yeah, would you,
I'd like to hear from anybody
yeah,
else.
we'll take it from the public first and then we can discuss.
Anyone here for the public? Yes.
Okay. Are you an attorney?
No.
Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Can you please identify yourself?
Frank Kahimas, 96 Madison Street. We're on the adjacent property of this property right here.
Yeah, I think he testified.
Pardon?
Yes.
I thought you maybe had testified already on this or not, maybe not.
At the ARB,
Oh, the ARB.
not at the ZBA. The reason why this is new to the ZBA. So I take distinction on what I read in the documents. This was a substantial addition. And I understand that that the applicant has changed lawyers. So I'm only going by what I read on the most recent information. But quite honestly, you know, this is the second time I've been here. There are a couple things that are highly improper about what the kind gentleman has just highlighted and are actually insignificant or not insignificant. Number one, there's a stop work order on this property. Why is there a stop work order on this property?
I'm gonna object right now to relevance that has nothing to do with this variance proceeding.
It has
It's about-
complete
excuse me, a point of order. This is a quasi judicial court and I'm going to object. There is a dispute over the rear structure in the back. We're working with the building department. It has absolutely nothing to do with this variance request. And I would ask you to admonish the.
You don't need to
No, I'm going to ask you to admonish the applicant to keep the speaker to keep his comments germane to the variance.
They are completely germane.
Stop recording has nothing to do with
Well,
it.
So
wait,
I think we
One
need
at a
to
time,
let him
please,
finish the
because-
testimony and then you can
Yeah.
comment, please.
If you- if you-
kind enough to give you all of the due time. that
Look,
you
you're
need.
limited to 3 minutes, so could you continue going on
Yeah,
that, please?
so, there is a stop work order put on this property. Today, there is work being done, so the stop work order has been violated.
It's not true.
It is, I have pictures of it.
You know, that has nothing to do with this board anyway.
I
Your comment
understand.
should be on what's before the board, which is enclosing the front porch with glass windows. That's all we want to hear about.
I understand. This project had, so I'm going back to what you all have very kindly said, which was 50%. You have used that as a benchmark. They want to take it higher than 50%. It's already at 50% according to the last documents that I saw. And they want to take it higher to 7.8%.
I don't think you're familiar with what is being asked of us. It's to enclose an existing front porch with glass windows. Instead of screens. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, but doesn't it also increase the, am I correct or am I incorrect?
Which represents 7%,
Yeah, 7.8%.
right?
Okay,
But
that's what I
that's
would.
well under the 50% cap that they're limited to, so this board
They're allowed to
regularly
expand
addresses, yeah.
by 50%.
It's well under what this board regularly grants, just so you're
So-
aware.
We have gotten, there are 280 pages of files that we as neighbors have had to deal with. All right, within the building department. Okay. We have gone through work order on top of work order on top of work order. The building department has been very helpful. But half of the stuff that has gone on, the reason why, Mr. McGuire, the reason why I do think it's relevant is because that barn should have been brought before the ZBA.
Can you hold comment on that, please? We'd like to stick to this
Okay.
variance application. There's no
We
barn
just
on
can't-
this application.
We just can't go through more construction. We've gone through 5 years of this, and if you look through all of the documentation, it's been 5 years.
There's no limitation on construction. You can keep
understand
renewing
that.
building permits. We're here to talk about the porch.
This will have no effect on your property
I
anyway.
understand.
You really need to limit it to what's specifically being asked of us. And if you think more should have been asked, then go back to the building inspector.
I understand that, but from our perspective, it just keeps, it's death by 1,000
But
cuts.
can I just say something? I think the frustration here is that you're addressing all these issues that we have no jurisdiction over at all, and so we can't provide any relief, even if you deserve the relief. But I think that these guys have said, there's a very simple proposition here. They want to enclose the screen-in porch, and that's it. And so you're way beyond your 3 minutes anyway. So you gotta get right to that point, otherwise people.
This is,
Right.
sorry, I'm not looking. This has been. This great old historic structure. Great old historic structure. And it has just been taken apart bit by bit by bit. Right? And even Mr. Studenroth went over and said that this house was a treasure, and he wrote it in the notes that you all can look at.
Just talking about the barn.
No, I'm talking about the structure.
In any case, your point's well taken.
Okay.
This,
Yes.
this will go before the architecture review board and they can comment on
Yeah.
Mr. Studenroth's.
I'm beyond.
Thank
my
you.
truth.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else from the public?
I don't see anybody.
All right.
All right.
I'd like to take some comments from the board, please.
So my comment, if I just may, I mean, I agree with you, Val. I think that that's a mischaracterization of why we need setbacks, even if you're just enclosing a screen and porch, because it is an expansion of the living area and you can't have an impact on the neighbor. So I don't think there's any question about that. All that said, they're not changing an inch of the footprint. they're doing a very simple kind of enclosure of a screened-in porch. I'm having a hard time seeing what the impact to the community is gonna be. I'd be a little bit more worried if it were a bedroom that was being made from that sunroom. Or screened-in porch, because then that's additional capacity, additional people on the property, et cetera. But none of that's happening. I guess it's a sunroom.
It's 8 feet wide.
So for me, and whatever the history, and maybe the gentleman from the public has some fair points, it just means we all have to collectively do our jobs, you know, better and better and better to preserve the village. But whatever happened in the past is kind of immaterial at this point, and it's a fairly simple and straightforward proposal to to enclose a screened-in porch, and I think it's straightforward, so I would be prepared to support it.
Okay,
I feel exactly the same. It's a very simple enclosure and I have no issues with it.
I think the architecture review board should take a close look at what it's going to look like. The screen door will disappear in some kind of a winterized door. How will the windows, will the walls have to come out to put new walls in that are insulated?
correct.
That kind of thing. But I think that's an issue for the architecture review board, not for us. So I don't have a problem with it, so I don't have a problem
Yeah.
with it.
To Mr. McGuire's comments, this is under the purview of the Architectural Review Board, Board of Historic Preservation, in terms of enclosing the porch. And as you pointed out, this is an existing footprint. There's no expansion of the house beyond that footprint. And there is precedent in the village for other homes with enclosed porches on the front. So we have no objection from the public. Minor objection not relevant to this project with regard to a barn or a stop work order. I see no reason why this might be precedent setting in terms of the distinction here is that the footprint exists and it's an enclosure of a porch. It's not adding significant GFA to the house. It's minimal. So would the board like to go around? Are you in favor of this application?
I'm okay with it, yeah.
Okay,
Me as well.
okay, so that makes 4. So
Make a motion to close
we're
and
gonna
direct
make a
the
motion
right
to close this public hearing
And direct you to write a decision.
and direct the attorney to write a written decision for 12 Amity Street for the next meeting, which is coming up June, we said the 17th.
So moved.
So Alex makes, and I'm gonna get a second.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much.
Yeah, Scott, back on.
Yeah, we're done.
Yeah, fine, I can.
We, okay.
Okay.
New business.
Were these mine?
Yeah. Okay.
I just didn't want to take your stuff. Next on the agenda is 53 Ryson Street.
29.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I looking at the wrong agenda?
Oh, it says 53 here.
It only has 49.
49 follows this one.
New
It says
business.
53.
Just switch to one
53,
new one.
53 Ryson Street.
Oh, 49 Racing Street.
Under new business?
Yeah.
Oh, this is not
My
mine.
agenda
Oh,
says
did you move
53.
over?
On the new agenda, you got 49.
Is that yours?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Sorry,
The updated one that
There's-
was. Board member Matheson recusing himself on 49.
right, sorry, there's a little bit of confusion here. So were these plans yours, Val? We're sitting. Oh, okay, great. I'm sorry. Next on the agenda is 49
Which one are we
Rice.
on?
49 Rice. So, Alec was not recused. Who is he recused from this and the other one? Okay, great. Okay, so could I have a motion to open 49 Rice Street?
Motion to open.
Second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Could you state your name and address for the record?
Catherine Craig from Creekman, PC, 279 Main Street, Corporation.
Great, thank you.
Applicant. So this property located at 49 Rixon Street. Currently, there is a single family residence, a pool, an accessory structure in the rear, and a smaller non-conforming shed. Applicant is proposing a rear addition and modification and to remove the existing pool and to construct a larger pool further towards the rear of the property. This property, I mean, this structure is very tricky. Right now, the rear part of the primary structure sits about 6 feet from the property line. And then the house on the other property line is right on property. So it's a very big area. And so applicant is seeking to move the rear of the structure over and expand it, going up to 2 stories and to the north with a screen porch, some internal area. The granting of the requested variances will not cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, nor will it create a detriment to nearby properties. As I explained right now, if the 2 structures are very close to one another, and applicant is seeking to bring it into slightly more conformance with regards to setbacks. Typically, properties of this size in the village are subject to the 410 rule. However, this, we ordered a single and separate search and it came back that it was only single and separate since 1991. And that's because in 1991, there was a lot line modification, that rear accessory structure was actually belonged to the neighbor. And now it belongs to 49 Riceham. So technically, not into the project, the subject premises is not entitled to proceed. But I do think that, you know, if neighboring properties are subject in the general, you know, you go down right up to it, there's all these narrow lots with tight side yard setbacks, I do think this consideration for the. If not for that lot wide modification, we wouldn't have as many variance requests as we do today. And while the pyramid request is substantial, we do believe it's mitigated by applicant's proposal to move the existing non-conforming rear section of the house away from the property line, which decreases that section of intrusion and minimizes the appearance from the street. The benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method feasible, other than area variance, because the premises is undersized, about half the area that it should be by code. And about half the required width at the front, about 56 feet. Combined with the existing structures, any substantial improvements would likely require a variance from the board. We also believe that the improvements will have an adverse factor impacting the physical or environmental condition. The premises is located within the proposed sewer shed, so applicant will be hooking up to that shortly. Proposed action is type 1 under secret, and the applicant will be installed adequate high level to mitigate any possible runoff issues. And while technically the development is self-created, because the owner obtained title to the premises with the current zoning regulation in effect, it's not often, it's not precluded granting of the variances requested. Up on the screen, I have the site plan. Oh, and I'm also joined Via Zoom, we have Marcus Zimke and Drew Steiner. They are the architects for the project. And the event the board has any architect specific questions, they'll be happy to assist in answering those. So I'm gonna go through, so again, we have a site plan on this initial page. And then going on here is there are the pyramid sketches. So I don't know if I think the board is in. So in this top left-hand corner, the purple and the orange shows the existing conditions. And you can see that's this rear section in the back that's about 6 feet to the property line. And then right to the right where you see the green, yellow, and red, we have the proposed. This up, so from the front. Back, we have removed that side intrusion. And then going down to the bottom, this is the rear, so this is the 1-story rear section of the house. And applicant proposing to create a 2-story with a side screened-in porch and patio. And then this is the northern property line. So again, this is existing and this is proposed. And again, even though the pyramid intrusion is substantial, it is split up a bit. I'm gonna jump to this, the community which shows the existing intrusions. And then here is the proposed.
So two things about just where we are right now. I think it would be helpful for the board if we knew how the numbers on how the pyramid is split up. And the other thing is, I know that there are elevation notes on the pyramid drawings, but I couldn't find any elevation designations on the survey. And maybe I was just. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was thinking of it. Never mind. It's not this project. Never mind. Sorry. No, they are on this survey. Because they're contour lines.
So as far as the pyramid, Marcus, do you have that handy, the division of the pyramid intrusions?
I don't have them separated. I don't have the two numbers separated, I don't think.
Can you hold on
I
one
would
second?
have to-
Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Marcus Zimke, 347 Bleecker Street, New York, New York.
Great. Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. Thank you. You can proceed now.
Yeah, so I don't have the divisions split at the moment, but I would be happy to provide those numbers first thing tomorrow to show the different variations. But obviously in this case, as you can see in the 3D diagram that Katie had up, the intrusion on the right side is obviously much smaller, and on the left is a bit larger, which is trying to get us up to a livable second story volume. The current floor height is, the ceiling height on the second floor is substantially low. So we're contending with sort of an existing historical structure here and trying to, obviously not exceed the existing ridge line. So that's where that intrusion on the left is coming from. But our intentions were to pull it as much off the side property line as possible, which is what you can see in these bottom two diagrams.
Right. I've been in this house. In the back of it, it has an almost unusable bathroom.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's going to be a 2-bedroom house when it's finished. Is that correct?
It is on the above grade. There is an intention to have a basement bedroom, a code compliant basement bedroom with egress once we get to that stage. But the upstairs will have only 2 bedrooms. Yes.
Right, so the house in total then will have how many bedrooms? Because we don't have a basement plan.
Yeah,
the
I think
bed-
it's,
The bedroom
I,
count has two effects. One is on the septic system size and one is, did you discuss, you're connecting to the sewer?
that's
Okay.
the intent, yes. Yeah.
Okay, but the other one is parking.
Yeah, so I think what we had planned for is 4 bedrooms total, potential. And I believe that, is it 3 cars, Katie, or is it 3 cars that's required for a 4-bedroom?
It's four, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
it's 4, okay.
Yeah. No,
I think technically,
three is two and then one is an additional one, correct? Is that correct?
Yes.
So it's three.
yeah, so we planned to be able to double stack cars left and right and then back and front. We created this, that you can see in the bottom left corner of the site plan that's up. The gravel driveway goes all the way from the property lot line back to the edge of the existing house. So it's deep enough for 2 cars front to back, and you can get them side to side kind of tightly towards the rear of the house.
So I guess we would want to see, I guess some cars indicated on there to prove that 3 will actually fit because
Okay.
just of the problems with off-street parking.
Of course, yeah, that's no problem.
Great. Do you have more to? I didn't mean to interrupt your flow. Oh, okay.
So I have a question.
Yep,
If there's
sure.
gonna be bedrooms in the basement and the survey says that you're removing the existing cellar entrance, but the architect said there will be egress from the basement. It's not shown on the survey. Where would that be?
We're showing, I don't know if Katie, if maybe you can zoom in on the site plan here. We're showing the light well on the upper right side of the plan where we would
Okay.
have egress windows
So,
located.
Is that noted as a variance item? Because that's how egress windows are, right? They allow light windows, but egress windows are a variance item, correct? Is that how he's interpreting it?
That's right.
I believe that's how it is.
Basement
So was that noticed?
window wells.
No, the light wall was not noticed.
Okay, so
Well,
that would,
actually, I think we have these listed a 7 point. Those are usually those. Yeah,
whose idea of setback, 7.3
Where does it go?
feet?
yeah,
Where's it
It's
going to
it's
go?
right there, I
the
think.
side yard.
Where in here?
Yeah, but that's only, what is that number? 7.3. No, it is, no, I'm sorry, you're right. It is noticed.
Yes, 15, so that's exactly.
Yep, that's noticed.
I'd make a note that there's no notice has been posted on the property.
I posted it in the.
It's-
driveway when
Fell off.
drove
I was
by.
just there yesterday.
I
Nothing
know.
was there.
So I did it myself and the wooden thing is still there, but somebody pulled it off. The nails are still there, but I mean, I'm happy to post it again, but
Yeah.
I did it myself and I drove by today. And.
I put it back on when I went over there to look. It was
Okay.
on the ground. I stuck it
Okay, I
back
didn't
up.
see any, I looked around, I didn't see any trace of it, but. So depending on how long it's been down, neighbors might not know what's going on there.
Well, if you're gonna adjourn the matter anyway, it can just.
Yeah, I can
post it for the
So
next meeting.
I have a question there.
The
The
curious-
frame cottage in the back, it looks to me like the old cottage has been demolished and what's being built there is completely new. There were people working on it when I went to the site yesterday. So I didn't feel comfortable walking in and inspecting what was going on the inside, but all of the wood was brand new. So it looked to me like whatever was there and was pre-existing non-conforming is no longer there, and every single thing that's there now is new, which means that it should have had both a permit to demolish and then it would have needed a permit to build. Obviously, it's right on the property line. I'm just curious about whether we inquire with the building department, with the building inspector, what's going on with that? Because it's a very crowded
It's a
lot
very crowded
already,
lot,
so- and
right.
I'm having some problems with just packing more stuff. in there.
Right. The other thing that I was curious about is the tax map number, because the survey lists it as 302-2, and then you and the village listed as 302 1, and I was trying to find this house in the historic reference. Did you try to find it? In the,
It's Suffolk County is 022-3.
so now there's a house listed as 302-2-3-6, which is a contributing house. I am assuming that this is the house.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Probably be a lot like modification.
So is the 6.1,
6.1 is the new correct.
but originally it might have been just 6, because we're trying to find it in the historic district records to find out if it's
Oh, I see.
contributing.
Yeah, so you would have.
It would have been, so is it 2 or 1? 302-1-3, no, 302.
So this is the new configured tax map on.
Right, so it is 302-2-3-6. So what's in the notice and in the, was wrong.
Okay, so we can
Fix that, right,
Yeah,
yeah.
by next week. Yep.
Yeah,
So that must be the house, right? This is
yeah,
the house.
if I could, for the record,
Val's gonna read the,
Yeah.
the description of,
Yeah, I think there was a notice, 6.1.
Yeah.
no, but it's 1, 302-1,
6.1.
Oh, you're saying 302.
2-1. 2.
Yeah. Okay.
this
So-
house is dated approximately 1840, according to the National Register of Historic Places. And it's described as a Greek revival style house. And goes on to explain the windows, and it's readily identifiable here in terms of the historic nature of the home. And the addition, which rivals the size of the house, would push that into consideration of the 50% of historic preservation consideration.
I mean, I think one problem with the addition is that it's as tall as the house itself. So this is a contributing house
Yeah.
to the historic district.
Yes.
And they do actually note the 1910 addition in the rear
Yeah,
as part of the description in the record.
to my previous point with 92 Bay Street, the additions, which may not have occurred with the original home, are often listed on this historic register in terms of the contributing value of that portion, that wing, which is often subservient to the primary structure. So,
I mean, I don't know how Phil feels, but I think the ARB might have a problem with the mass of the addition in that it begins to overwhelm the existing historic structure. I know it's not visible from the street, but the ARB looks at all sides of the. So then, just to get back to the pyramid, the total pyramid variance you're requesting is, I'm trying to find it here.
So.
This part's visible from the street.
Right, that part is, yeah.
1,625 for a total intrusion of 3,692.
And I'm sorry, where is that? Is that in the chart on the front page somewhere? No.
It's in the notice, and then I also have a chart on the page, A402.
Oh, I see it. Okay, it's over there in the corner.
The existing intrusion is 2,067. And we're proposing an increase of 1,625 for a total of 3,692. The numbers are a little tricky because we're taking some away because we're moving the house over,
Right.
but the total delta is 1,620.
So what you're actually asking, what's new is not 3,000, but
16.
1,625. Okay, well, there's a big difference.
Yeah.
Okay. And then it would be helpful to know, as we said, how that's split up. Yeah, but I personally think there should be, I know that it's a difficult house, but I think that there should be some investigation as to how to sort of reduce the height, at least the height and the massing of the rear addition. I mean,
I think
just looking at the plan upstairs, and we don't have any sections through here, so it's hard for us to judge. But it's quite, I mean, there's a lot of closet and bathroom and, there's a lot of space up there which could probably be shrunk. I don't know. That's my only comment. I don't know,
Marcus,
you guys.
I guess maybe one question I have, because we are under the maximum allowable GFA with the proposed still, so I wonder if reducing the height of the ridge of the rear addition would sufficiently address the sort of volume concerns that we're talking about. So instead of necessarily modifying the second floor plan in
Well,
scale.
it's not just the height, but if you look at the side elevation, it's just the I would say the overall mass of the whole proposed addition. And I don't know, that's just my opinion. I don't know how other board members are feeling.
I don't think the ARB is gonna like the massing.
Well,
That's
yeah,
the
the
one they can
historic
vote.
nature of the house is
Right.
gonna be lost.
If I could address the architect of the project, the way this ridge ties into the existing with a perpendicular ridge could be dropped. Because the Secretary of Interior guideline is to make sure that the new construction, there's a distinction between the historic portion and the proposed. So if you would want to share with your designer, something that would be sympathetic to the historic nature of this house, which is quite old, 1830. And if there were a way to mitigate the massing, this will help with what our concerns are.
Like, so this, the middle section here, the roof lower, and then what is his portion here?
That this is the addition,
Yeah.
no regard to the interior of the living space, but to create a distinction. So you're not merging the new addition to the point where you cannot tell the difference of the historic with the proposed. That distinction is something that needs to be made.
Generally, the Architecture Review Board likes to see some kind of a change in the ridge height between the existing
Yeah.
structure and the proposed addition. And they also like the proposed addition to be subservient to the existing structure. And what that may mean here is that there may be more volume of building here than the house can handle. I don't know. This is just my opinion.
Yeah, agreed.
It feels too much.
The other, I
It's-
appreciate your moving the addition away from the property line. I think that's a very good move. And perhaps there could be more movement away from the property line. I don't know. There may be other ways.
I wonder if perhaps a way to address these concerns is to sort of, from a massing perspective, break down this volume into two, so one larger volume off the rear of the house and then a smaller volume off that, to help sort of reduce further back and not make it feel so linear.
Yes, and what Board Member Valfloria was suggesting was that you could perhaps drop the section adjacent to the historic house.
Mhm.
And the other section could pop up if you needed more headroom in that. I mean, there may be ways to adjust the volume, so it's not just one linear massing, although this looks like a more modern take on a traditional solution. It's not actually probably what the ARB is looking for, just in terms of the way
Yeah.
the fencing attaches to the historic structure. Why don't we talk about also, so there's some questions there. What are we feeling about the other aspects of the project, the swimming pool, let's say?
Really forward leading, side and rear. And then we need relief in one corner where it's proposed to be 11 feet, so it releases about 4 feet.
And that's just on that inside corner of the adjacent property.
Right. One note for the applicant. This survey shows the ditch into the coping, not the water. And it's helpful to note for the future.
So we also have building coverage and lot coverage issues. So the building coverage from is up, at 20.7. And lot coverage is at, where 20 is allowed, and total lot coverage is at 29%, where 25 is permitted. So what was the original maybe lot coverage? Do we have?
Being lot coverage.
Oh, here it is.
22.7%.
Okay, so we're going up quite a bit. And the building coverage is going from 15.7 to 20.7. I mean, I understand the need for adjustments in the upstairs of this house, especially because it is quite challenging, let's say, height-wise. But I think that there needs to be some maybe redesign in terms of the way that it's being added on to. Has this been before the ARB? Not yet, okay. Why don't we see if there's anyone from the public that wants to speak to 49 Rysam Street? I can't tell, there's nobody in the audience, correct? Is there anyone on Zoom, Carrie? Nobody's their hand up.
Raised or anything.
Okay. So do the board members have any other comments?
Well,
Or
is this one where we'd like to see a construction description? In other words, if the basement's
Yes.
going to be extended and made more livable, doesn't the house have to get lifted to do that? And what's going to be left of the original house when all this is done?
But I also think that there needs to be a sort of a redesign.
There's a lot of historic
thing.
character to the front
Yes.
of the house from the street.
Yeah.
Will any of that be left? Will it all disappear?
I mean, I'm assuming that the
That's
point of this is to leave the existing section of the front of the house alone.
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, so we do mean to restore the house to its, original design, its original detailing. We do very much aim to do that. But yes, we will have to lift it to pour a new foundation and set it back down. That would be part of the construction scope. Happy to include a written narrative for everything that we're intending to do here.
Well,
When
what,
that happens, you lose the front facade of the house. I'll take you through the houses on my street.
well, it's possible, I mean,
Well,
that doesn't have
We
to
want the
happen.
windows to stay, we want the siding to stay, we want the front of the house to look like it looks like now.
Yes, but you can't
Yeah.
lift the house without destroying
Well,
the
I'm
house.
questioning then, if you're trying to maintain the historic nature of the town, should all these houses be lifted?
Well, sometimes
Well-
the foundation at this age of these houses, sometimes the foundation is in such disrepair that you structurally have to replace
Certainly if you
this
want to
foundation.
put a bedroom down there.
But
that's
not even that.
Well, I live in a house that has a rubble foundation and half of it that dates to 1830, and the house will be there and doesn't need to be lifted.
But sometimes that's not the case because
All right,
sometimes the walls are being pushed in because there's no mortar holding them up. I don't know what the
Yeah.
case is here.
We
but-
do have some heaving, yeah. But I think too, we've had some success, for instance, up at 10 High Street where, that historic portion of the house was placed back down exactly at the original location. And I think it has been quite successful. So we would aim to be as respectful as possible here as well.
Maybe we'll write that up in our decision if we grant.
Well,
variances.
yes.
We have two houses on Howard Street that the original house in the last 2 years was completely lost, and they were both contributing houses gone.
But that's, that's partially due to inspections and paying attention to what was approved. And that's sort of beyond
Yeah, but
our,
you have a little more control if our decision is.
Right.
yes.
The ARB did.
You make a new friend? You make a new friend?
I want to just add to that comment, and this is a repeat request, which is coming now before this board. We have no 1/4-inch scale plans with notations here that say proposed demolition of existing 1-story historic addition, proposed new foundation, proposed new stone. Yeah, but these plans, which are a smaller version of that, don't have any narrative, like this addition is being taken off of the house, or the foundation's being extracted, or what happens to the stone? Are you using the existing texture material of this house? And to Mr. McGuire's point, when a renovation doesn't have any of that information, the inspector goes in the field and that house is stripped down to the bare bones. How did it get there? And the reason is there's nothing in this drawing set to say this is the scope of work. It's just it's too wide open. It needs to say exactly what you're doing to the house.
I think also it would help this board if we had more drawing information. I mean, if there are proposed bedrooms in the basement, I think we would want to see, at least a proposed plan for that, how the egress works. A section through the new proposed addition so that we can see how the plate heights are and, how the roof slope works. But also, to Val's point, notations about, what are existing materials that are going to be maintained, which ones are, maybe being reused, which ones are being demolished. If the house is being lifted, is the foundation going to be veneered in this, existing stone or new stone or, things like that. Which could be all on, just a set of drawings.
Right.
But I think maybe the main takeaway is that it just seems too ambitious for the site. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah, it can be reduced without compromising the second floor.
And I'd like to learn some more about the Fran Cottage. The renovation of that.
I emailed the building inspector.
Thank you.
So was somebody somebody from the public trying to comment?
No, I think they're talking to their
Their
dog.
dog.
Oh, okay. Okay, so,
That's nice.
do you guys need any more comments? We probably don't want more comments from the board.
I think I understand the direction the board is.
Okay. Does the architect have any more comments or questions?
No, I think that's all completely clear, and yeah, I have ideas on what we can do to bring back something a bit more sympathetic, as well as include more drawings and more clarity on our intent and our construction narrative, so that all your concerns are met.
Great, thank you. Unless anybody has. Yep.
I don't know,
Damon?
I couldn't find it. Where's the pool equipment?
Ah,
Oh, it's gonna be under the house in the basement.
Okay.
okay. So it would be good to note that
Note that, right.
somewhere also.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Anything else? Okay, so could I have a motion to adjourn 49 Rysam Street to, I can't remember what,
17.
to the 17th of June meeting.
Make a motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
So the next item on the agenda is, no, let me go backwards here, sorry. 53 Rising Street. Yes. So could you state your name and address for the record?
Bowers Craig, 9 Main Street, back Harbor.
Great, thank you.
You didn't open the meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't open the meeting. Could I have a motion to open the public hearing for 53 Rising Street?
Motion open.
Second,
Second?
all in favor? Aye.
Thank you, Barbara.
Great, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Also, the property Bowers Craig, probably the applicant for 53 Rising Street. Maybe like the property that, I just mentioned before. The applicant, currently has a 1.5-story frame house, and a rear accessory structure on the property. Applicant is seeking to, construct a front dormer and, to renovate minor additions on the rear and to construct a proposed pool with spa. And additionally relocate some existing sheds on the property. The granting of the requested variances will not cause an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, nor will it detriment to the nearby property. In fact, the proposed work will improve the neighborhood by restoring a beautiful historic home located in the village's historic district. Additionally, most of the proposed improvements will be screened from the street and be completed by existing and proposed landscaping on the premises. And based on proposed improvements are visible to the street and our neighboring properties. The proposed additions are in keeping with the character of the Georgia district. Further, applicant is not seeking to increase the activity. And the rear addition is not adding to the footprint of the house. Applicant is simply seeking to clean up the existing disjointed rear section of the house. I just want to point this out real quick before I finish the balancing tab. I have up on the screen the site plan. And this shadow of a line here is where the existing structure is. So it comes out the side and then it cuts in and goes over, so it's kind of a bit disjointed, so we're not overall increasing the size of the structure, we're just cleaning it up. The benefits of an applicant cannot be achieved by other methods other than an area variance, because the property is very narrow, less than 50 feet wide. When the code requires a minimum of 100, and it's undersized at less than half of the square footage requires a code. The requested variants are significant in number, and some are substantial, but this is due to the undersized, narrow, non-conforming lot area and the pre-existing structure. Further, any substantiality of the side yard setback request will be mitigated by existing and proposed vegetation. I circulated a proposed landscaping plan, most notably in the rear. Near the pool, there is an existing 6-foot fence, and applicant is proposing an additional 4-foot solid fence and vegetation to screen from that neighbor. And to the neighbor, I have photos of the premises. The vegetation is so thick you cannot see the neighboring property in the rear yard. Also, the requested pyramid really is divided into 2 sections. The front dormer contains 317 cubic feet, and the rear addition contains 198, which help to mitigate the substantiality of the variance. And I submitted this for the remaining reflected is the minimum necessary to achieve the proposed restoration and modest additions. Applicant proposed improvements will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood. Applicant does not seek it to improve building coverage, and in fact, the total lot coverage will decrease somewhat from 46.5 to 44.9%. The effect on the environment and conditions in the neighborhood. And this is also, the applicant is going to be connecting to the village sewer. And technically the difficulty is self-created, but it's through the grant. And I can go through the pyramid drawings for the board.
So right there, one thing that it was on this application that I noted, there are elevation notes on the pyramid drawings, but I don't see any on the sorry. I'm just wondering, they must exist because they're on the elevations, and I'm just wondering if they could be added to the survey. Do we have those on record?
Yeah.
Or I don't know where they came from. I didn't see any elevate, did you see any elevation notes? Val, on the? No.
Yeah, we'll have the surveyor add the element.
That was my only comment on that. So this house also is a contributing house to the historic district. Described as one and 1/2 story, 3-bay frame residence with 1 over 1 windows, shingle wall cladding, side gable roof, an enclosed front porch, and a modern rear addition. This half house has been altered but retains its historic proportions, roof profile, and early details, including bracketed cornice. There is a non-contributing garage, which must be referring to the what is now the ADU in the rear.
Let's stop the share real quick to make sure you have anything. Just like any on there. Here's the section. Yeah. Okay, so I have the pyramid drawings up. So in the top left, we have the existing west elevation. And the existing rear elevation in the bottom with the green and red, shows the proposed. So here's proposed front elevation with the dormers. And then the rear has a slight intrusion to the northern property line.
So the whole rear, I guess this is another thing that needs to be noted on the drawings, the whole rear addition that's existing is being demolished. Is that correct?
The back section,
Yes.
and I think it's fair to say that that rear addition is going to be removed and.
So I think that's one item that would need to be clarified. I think it would also be helpful if we had plans of the building.
Building plans.
Yeah. I mean, and the other question is, of course, if that's being demolished, is the house being, is it raised and a new foundation put under the whole thing, or just the rears?
There will be a new foundation, but the house is planning to go back to the exact same location. The house is not going to be moved. It'll be lifted, the foundation poured and put.
Okay. I don't know, Alex, do you have comments you want to make? So could you state your name?
Alex Matheson, I'm the homeowner of 53 Rice Street.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. You can proceed.
I just wanted to just
You
clarify.
have just-
Okay. Oh, I just want to clarify, you might have called that, but only the front portion of the house is a contributing
Right.
portion. Not just the garage, but the rear portion of the house we're talking about is not a contributing.
Well,
Built in the 1940s.
yeah, listed in here, it calls it a modern rear addition. It notes it. It doesn't necessarily say that it makes it a contributing factor or not. It does note it as a modern rear addition, so.
It was built in the 1940s. I'm pretty sure with Zach that it was really just a front 2-story portion of the house instead of storage.
So have they reviewed?
Yeah, we've taken to the ARB for discussion, and the ARB they were seeming ecstatic is a little strong, but they were very to a person enthusiastic, concerns at all. And to clarify to answer your other question, yeah, the idea is to raise the front part of the house, to keep it entirely intact, except for modifying the front steps slightly,
Right.
just to match the landing. Putting the dormer on, but otherwise the whole front is not gonna change at all. I'm gonna keep it all historic and then put it back down. But yes, the rear addition, which is in very bad condition already, the shingles are rotting, the windows are rotting around. They have a mold problem in the basement. It's been kind of recurring on and off for a couple of years. That'll be addressed. So it'll be removed and then rebuilt, but rebuilt closer to the tradition of Sag Harbor, which is a very simple square or rectangular structure.
Do the board members have any other questions about the house?
No, I have questions or comments on some of the substantial variances that are precedent setting.
In regard to the house? I mean, there are other aspects
To
to
the
the
application, I'm not sure what you mean by the
Well,
house.
well, there's the house, there's a
I
swimming
have
pool.
nothing,
there's-
yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Okay, so why don't we? You
I have
raise
nothing to
those.
say about the house.
Oh, okay. So, why don't we talk about the other, for a moment, talk about the other factors? There's the swimming pool, the AC handlers, the mechanical pool, I mean, the pool equipment, I'm sorry, and then sort of the barbecue.
Barbecue.
Are those all of the, did I miss anything? I'm sorry.
The AC is the pool equipment, pool and the barbecue.
Right.
Pyramid, primary structure, front dormer, AC units, the whale shed,
Oh, the whale shed.
swimming pool, which is just being relocated on the property.
So where, I'm sorry.
Right now, the whale shed lives in.
With a barbecue.
And
it's
the barbecue, right?
Oh, I see where it's I'm sorry, I was looking for where it was relocated to. It's relocated to the end of the driveway. So. Tim, you had.
No, I would request the applicant to consider reducing or eliminating those variances because they're substantial, those 3, 4. The barbecue, the pool, the air conditioning, and the pool equipment. There are other opportunities on the property, I think, to relocate them. And the pool especially is a larger variance than I think we would typically grant.
If I may, the AC units, the pool equipment and the barbecue, the property line there is extremely well vegetated. It's very thick and there's fencing, cannot see the neighbors, and I'm fairly certain that the vegetation
Yeah.
and fencing would absorb.
Yeah,
any
well, it's not
water.
just about whether the neighbors can see it or not. The code is the code and things are set back, not just for the convenience of the neighbors, but for, other reasons, as you know.
I think also because it's a little, it's like a very convenient place to put them, and I understand the logic of putting them there, but because the other house is so close to it, it's sort of gonna create it may create a noise factor between the 2 houses. I would think if they were there would have to be some sound attenuating fencing to.
Yeah. We would be fine with installing any type of sound absorbing barrier, and to add, the neighbor did submit a letter of support for this application. Including all of the setbacks from their property line.
Can I comment on that?
Sure, you're, yes, sure, yeah.
Yes, as Katie said, all 4 neighbors on all 4 sides wrote letters fully supporting that. I specifically talked to the neighbor about the AC units and the pool equipment being there. And after some initial questions, they were okay with it. And what they did is, as far as I know, I didn't know what the last thing, is they also located their pool equipment on that side of the building. So it's almost kind of like an offsetting potential impact. And that fence that you see there is not just a fence, it's a full-on soundproofing fence. I mean, I'll do the maximum necessary to mitigate that sound. I know there's a bunch of technology, I talked to the architect, talked to the neighbors, and I think that the impact of that will be tremendous. And, you know, yes, are there physically places you can put the AC and the pool equipment? Yes, but not anywhere where it wouldn't cause a bigger impact on the neighborhood. But as far as I can count, they left it put it right in the back of the, you know, the middle of the patio in the back. But there's no other place. It's an obvious place. It's a little hidden corner alley. And as Katie said, the vegetation, which has been there for as long as I've been there, 25 years, and I think another 15 from that, it's 12 to 14 foot high bamboo. See it? And it's a very forest, and there's a 6 foot solid fence behind that. Between us, it goes all the way from building to building, from corner to corner. So there's already a solid fence there. And I'm gonna add a second little short little sound for, but definitely, and you know, the barbecue, basically, on the one hand, it's not that important, and so on, but it's already a larger, you know, shed there. And it's not gonna have any measurable impact. They're not gonna ever see it. They're not gonna see anybody standing at it. And. In fact,
They've got theirs there.
What? Hold it off.
These are the two houses. Those are there.
It's, I worry about the pool, because. First of all, that pool was, you know, I admit right from the get-go, it was overly ambitious at first, but the original thought was to do more like a 16 by 24. I very quickly realized that was gonna be untenable. And this is technically a proposed pool, and that's obviously what the code called it, but really effectively it's a large spa. The kind of cool water area, the only swimmable portion is 6 foot by 18 feet. It's not diveable, it's 5 feet deep, so there's no diving in that pool. And so it really is just kind of a cold and hot plunge spa is really effectively what it is. And likewise, I've got the full enthusiastic support of my neighbors. They know I've walked them over there, showed the price of the pool was going. And I'm gonna have not only a double fence, but that second pool fence is gonna be solid wood material.
Well, it's a significant variance from the code for the pool. I'm talking to the side yard. And first of all, I want to say for the record, I'm really uncomfortable having these kinds of discussions with a fellow board member. It's just uncomfortable to me personally. I think that this is precedent setting to have a pool that we grant a variance. The pool could be shifted to closer to the center of the backyard without any problem that I can see, except maybe aesthetics, but that's not our job here, so.
Utility life, I mean, there are utilities also control of the yard, and it is such a tight, small space to have any type of, you know, eating your lunch out, you know, in the rear of your house.
No, I know. Look, there are always reasons for someone to do something, and we have a code, and I don't think we could write into our decision that we're granting this side yard setback because it makes it more convenient for somebody to have lunch in the middle of the backyard or whatever. The code is the code.
Yes.
We need real reasons, I think, to grant a variance that's almost 50%.
But I have seen that the board considers support from neighbors that distinguishes it from their applications, and vegetation and soundproofing. And the fact that this really is just a plunge pool, it's not a dive pool. There's not gonna be kids playing Marco Polo and people diving in and.
No, who knows? Who knows what's gonna go on there? The current owner maybe, but we look at these things for what's gonna happen 10 years from now, 20 years. That's why we have a code. So you can get all your neighbors to agree, but they all move away and new people come in, and so we definitely want and accept and value input from neighbors, but it's not the be all and end all. All your neighbors can agree on everything and it's still not pass muster.
I'm wondering if you want to do a pool that perhaps this is the wrong shape. I mean, it's a very square shape, and it maybe should be more of a narrow, long pool that moves a little bit more into the property, so that you still have space between the house and the pool, but it's not as close to the property line. So there might be some, I think there's some exploration that could happen there if you definitely want to have a pool. I could sort of understand why the AC stuff and the pool equipment is over in that corner, and maybe that can be mitigated
okay.
with sound attenuation. I don't know. I'm just saying,
I can go with that.
because the neighbor on
I just
their
think the pool
surveys.
itself is precedent setting, so from now on, this will be the
6 feet,
precedent,
yeah.
and every pool can
Yeah.
be this distance from the side yard, because there's not a compelling argument
No,
that
you're
it
right.
can't be moved to the center, and I don't see why a precedent should be set over this.
No, so I think that that's
If I
something
could
to,
add, if there's a distinction like a structure, you can see there's a framed shed here. In an instance where a pool might be that close, if it's butt up against someone's garage, that's a sound attenuation feature.
Well,
So
wait.
there's a distinction, and I think we need to find that here, to your point, that, what is the distinction that would make this allowable?
There may not be in this case though, because we have granted variances near buildings where I'm
With
thinking of,
supportive neighbors.
right, where, Jefferson Street, where there was a garage adjacent to the pool, which
Right.
mitigated the sound of the
Yeah.
pool. That's not really the case here, though. So I think maybe that needs to be rethought. I'm wondering about, barbecue areas can be sort of noisy too. And I'm wondering if that could be moved farther away, because a shed is very benign, but a barbecue can be a gathering and, noisy place that close to the neighbor property line. So maybe there could be a better location for that. I'm not really concerned about that much for that relocated shed being so close to the property line. I think we had one over on Franklin Street that we located fairly, because it's a very benign structure.
I agree.
But there are noises associated with the other elements, the air conditioning, the pool equipment, the barbecue, and the swimming pool. So I don't know, maybe there could be some more thought about those items.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You could change the layout of the pool.
Right,
That's,
because I think
that's
maybe the pool,
more rectangular with,
right.
spa on one end, pool on the other
Yeah,
end.
maybe it should be a long, narrow thing with the spot, one end of it, instead of a more rectangular or square shaped. I know these are just, comments. How are people feeling about the addition to the house now? In terms of its massing and,
I think the house is fine.
Yeah, I would leave it to the architecture review board.
Yeah.
right. I mean, it seems to be a sympathetic, reconstruction of, and basically staying sort of in the same footprint. I think it would be good, though, in terms of that, to have drawings with sort of a narrative on them, so we just understand exactly what's happening to the house.
Right.
Construction narrative.
Construction narrative to go with the,
I wouldn't add, it would be helpful to have a floor plan in looking at this, where the air conditioning is placed and the pool equipment. That could have been the basement egress, ingress. And you could have put the pool equipment in a conforming location where the basement stairs are. And had we had the floor plan, I feel that this board would have been able to have some creative suggestions to that end. And we could have eliminated those two variances or concerns, although we do have support from neighbors. So I feel as if we're at a disadvantage because we can't comment in a manner where we can offer that input. I don't know what the basement looks like, so I couldn't say flip your pool equipment with the basement stairs, which is a plausible way to kill those two variances.
I mean, you would have a setback to the stairs, but the stairs and the window egress that are sort of next to it are benign. They don't make noise.
Yeah.
So,
but
that's something to think about.
Right, the point being, we should have floor plans with the applications. If that's possible. And also a description of the work, because this addition will involve demolition of the existing construction.
So at this point, let's see if there is anyone from the public that would like to speak to 53 Rising Street. There's nobody in the audience. Anyone
Anyone
on Zoom?
online? Anybody on Zoom, Vice House?
This was a previous evolution.
Reasonable.
Anyway.
No, no one? Carrie, no one? No, okay, great. Do you, Alex, do you guys have any other questions or comments?
I just have a quick one. One, Brian, sorry to beat you on principle, it's obviously say whatever you want and go to the conference and so on, so.
Well, I will.
I am a home.
I think in the future also, if, I mean, I may come before the board in the next year or two with my own home. I think the board member should leave the room so that
No,
they're
well,
to lessen,
no,
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I know you feel that way, but normally when you're actually recusing, you do leave the room, right? But when it's your own personal property, you have an absolute right to present to the board. And he has a right to hear what the board has to say, he has a right to participate in the application. And just, regardless of how you guys feel about it, you still have an obligation to the village to apply the 5-part test to the application before you, as if it weren't Mr. Matheson or a board member, because it's, like you said, it runs with the land, not the applicant. So that's all I'll say on that.
Great,
Yeah.
thank
Sorry, I
you.
just.
So, sure,
Could you just show them the elevation from the south of the north, right, the south? I just want to kind of point out, you guys are right, there's a lot of variances here for sure. And I understand that the barbecue, the pool location and the pool equipment are the ones that are kind of the most at issue. I do want to point out that I did that knowingly. But I also was conscious of the fact that on the whole, I think this is a very modest and sensitive proposal for the village. And I just want to point out, for instance, if you look at the elevation, south elevation. I'm straightening it out, I'm cleaning it up, it's much more historical than I think that funny thing that was built in the 1940s. It's gonna be a cleaner look, but the main thing is as far as I know, according to the ordinance, I did have an FA to go up a whole floor and add a second floor. And I could have done that, I could have added extra square footage for the house. It would have been more convenient for me, because to the extent that I'm gonna have some additional bedrooms, instead of having an basement where they're not desirable, I could have had 2 more at least up on the second floor. And I very intentionally didn't do that, because I didn't want to increase the mass of the house overall. And so, I know that's one thing, and the variances that I'm asking for, the setbacks are a separate thing. But I was hoping for would take into consideration the overall sensitivity of this project, where the kind of historic look of it and the mass are part of the increase in the law. And the footprint is the same, I'm not using the south front of the house. So I'm hoping that the board can be a little bit more flexible on some of the other smaller side yard setbacks, in recognition that I really not just preserve the house in its current state, but I think enhanced it culturally, just in terms of historic architecture. And the overall size and effect on the community, so this.
great, thank you. Just in terms of the technical thing, we need those spot elevations on the
Right.
survey. And one thing I was noticing here, and so because the both the total lot coverage and the rear lot coverage are going down, they're not, even though they're over the required percentages, they don't need to be noticed, correct? Sorry,
If it's
Liz.
going down, they don't need to be noticed.
Okay, okay, correct. Any other questions or comments from board members? Nope.
No,
Okay.
but with pool, shouldn't the dry well be noted as well?
Oh, right, we do need a
Yeah.
dry well for the pool.
Required by code, it would be-
Yeah.
but we'll show the proposed location.
And then there should be dry wells for the roof runoff too. So, and I know you're connecting to the sewer, so there's not a septic issue. Right, right. Okay.
Are you asking for a full set of construction plans or just a scope of?
Well, you'll need that for
Yeah,
construction,
but
so it should come before the board. Because whatever stamp is gonna go into the field, and that's gonna be the building inspector's guideline to say, okay, what's going on here?
It's not the stamp plan from the zoning board, it's the permit. Also, after this board is done, goes on
Right.
to DRB.
But we want to assure that those future drawings will reflect what this board has approved. Because they get out to the ARB and in past, there's no indication that the addition has been, like, where's the house? And the inspector can't say, wait a minute, you've torn down a small house down to the first floor. We want that on paper, not just for this board, the ARB board and the building permit. It's standard graphic information. Every architect who presents to this board or that building department should have that information, not concept drawings. And we're just asking that part of what we do is preserve and protect the history of the village. If there's no project narrative on these plans, the inspector can't police project.
Project, that's what I'm trying to get clarification on. Project construction narrative is difficult. I don't have yet. I'm sure they're
Right.
I want to get.
It's just notations. It's just notation saying this is being demolished, or there's a foundation plan that says this is new foundation. We don't have that.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah. And that's not too much to ask of the architect. That's their job. So it's a dereliction of their duty to come in with plans that are incomplete. And I say that as an architect, I wouldn't present these to the board with no notations on the plans. It's just, I wouldn't say it's not malpractice, it's not good practice. And we want to raise the graphic standards in this village so people don't take these houses apart.
Great. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, so could I have a motion to adjourn 53 Rysam Street to the June 17th meeting?
Make a motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you. So now, oops, executive session, could I have a motion to approve going into executive session to ask legal advice of our attorney?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Hold on one moment.
So next on the agenda is correspondence requiring action for, is this Craig?
Oh.
So it's for,
It's correspondence requiring action, it's a referral, and it's for involved agency comments on 7 and 11 Bridge.
great, thank you, I was a little confused.
Pending before, yes, that would be pending before the,
Great, thank you.
John Ellsworth, are you here?
I am.
Hi.
Hi.
Stand to the door, please. Thank you.
All right, we ready to go on this thing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And I understand that the board is already familiar with it, but I'll just go through the details of what's before you, just for the record. So the purpose of the discussion this evening is to provide the ZBA with background so that it can determine the role it should play in the State Environmental Quality Review, or SECRA, process that's being conducted for the project proposed at 7 and 11 Bridge Street. More specifically, the planning board, in its role as the SECRA lead agency, is requesting that the ZBA consider providing comments on the record regarding the draft environmental impact statement, DEIS, that has been circulated for public review. And I think the board has received flash drives with the DEIS on it. It's important to emphasize that the ZBA will retain its statutory authority over the application and will be required to fill its usual obligations in its deliberations and ultimate decision on the application when it is before you. The planning board's role as lead agency in the SECRA review of the application does not diminish the ZBA's authority or obligations. Excuse me. Prior to its decision on the application, the ZBA will be required to adopt what's known as a SECRA finding statement, which will be based on the information and analysis being compiled by the planning board in its role as the lead agency. Often, other approval agencies simply adopt the finding statement prepared by the lead agency. Therefore, any input that the ZBA provides on the DEIS will be helpful to ensuring the completeness of the record on which the finding statement and the decision by all of the involved boards is based. The ongoing public review of the DEIS offers the ZBA an opportunity to ask questions about the proposed project so that responses can be prepared with additional information to be included in the forthcoming final environmental impact statement, or FEIS. It's important to note that the DEIS was prepared by the applicant, and although the planning board conducted what's known as a completeness review, the document was prepared by and is the applicant's document. In contrast, the FEIS will be the planning board's own document upon which decisions will be based. The planning board, as the lead agency, will have the absolute final authority over the content of the FEIS. That was not the case with the DEIS. After the FEIS comes the finding statement. That'll be the final step in the SECRA process. And that will be based on the information and analysis in the DEIS, and also particularly in the FEIS regarding the impacts of the project and the measures that are being offered to mitigate those impacts. The SECRA finding statement will summarize this information in both the DEIS and the FEIS, and will present a conclusion as to whether the project is approvable based on environmental considerations as balanced against any benefits that the project offers. Therefore, it's critical that any questions be asked now prior to the close of the public comment period on the DEIS, so that these issues can be addressed in the FEIS and accounted for in the finding statement. Planning board held a public hearing on April 22nd to receive comments on the DEIS, and that hearing is being continued to May 27th. Currently, the DEIS review period is scheduled to close on June 27th. So we have about a month, a little over a month for the comment period. Just briefly, a description of the project. Key components: it's a 3-story mixed-use building. It's on a little less than an acre, which currently contain a commercial building and a 1-story commercial building and a 1.5-story frame dwelling.
These improvements will be removed under the proposed action and replaced with about a 81,000 square foot building containing 48 apartment units, 28 of which will be market rate and 20 which would be workforce units. About 8,500 square feet of service-oriented commercial space and about a 16,500 square foot internal parking garage. Overall, 137 parking spaces are proposed. 44 will be provided on the site at 711 Bridge Street. And 93 will be provided on the, or proposed to be provided on the adjacent property to the north at 5 Bridge Street. That's the former gas ball site. It's currently a gravel parking lot that's used for public parking. The application requires numerous local approvals, site plan and special exception approval from the planning board, 7 variances at current count from this board, approval from the Board of Trustees for an extension of the municipal sewer line, certificate of appropriateness from the Board of Historic Preservation and Architectural Review, and a coastal consistency determination based on review and recommendation from the Harbor Committee. The project is also undergoing supplemental environmental remedial action under the New York State Brownfield Cleanup Program, which is overseen by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. Purpose of today, me speaking to you today again, is to express the planning board's request that the ZBA provide comments on the DEIS. This outreach is being conducted with all the village boards having jurisdiction over the proposed development, including the Board of Trustees, the Historic Preservation Board, and the Harbor Committee, in addition to the ZBA. While any comments are welcome and will be addressed in the final environmental impact statement, questions about the proposed project within this board's jurisdictional authority would be the most helpful to the process. So I'll just note that it's my understanding that the village attorney has been discussing this with you about preparing a comment letter specifically concerning the variances that are being requested under the proposed act. Those variances, based on the information in the DEIS, include, again, there were 7 variances. Maximum residential density, 5 market rate units are permitted based on the size of the property, and they're proposing 28 market rate units. Maximum number of stories, 2 are permitted based on the zoning district the property is located in, and they're proposing 3 stories. Minimum yard, 40 feet is required, 17 feet is proposed. Minimal excuse me, minimal habitable living area in residential units. The code requires that the minimum size of a residential unit be 800 feet, and they're proposing units as small as 494 feet. And in fact, all 20 of the proposed workforce units would be less than the required 800 square feet. The 5th variance is an allowance for off-site parking at 5 Bridge Street. That's 33 spaces are required to be provided on-site pursuant to the code. The proposal is for 44 parking spaces on-site with 93 parking spaces at 5 Bridge Street. 6 variances as to allow enclosed spaces below the base flood elevation. And the 7th variance is relief from the development standards for the proposed project-related parking in 5 Bridge Street. So they would maintain it as a gravel lot, and instead of doing the normal finishing and marking of the pavement, curbing, drainage, pedestrian accommodations, and things like that. We believe it would be appropriate and helpful for the ZBA to ask questions regarding the nature and magnitude of the proposed variances that I just outlined for you, the justification for the requested relief, and the balance between the benefit to the applicant versus the impact to the community and the environment. And those, as you'll well aware of the essential aspects of determinations on such applications pursuant to the village code. The discussion and analysis of the requested variance relief is presented on pages 96 through 100 of the DEIS. They go through the five standards for evaluating variance relief and through the different variances that they are requesting. It's important that any comments from the board at this time focus on factual and analytical and aspects of the proposed project without suggesting a predisposition toward a particular outcome or decision. We're not yet at that point in the process where the ZBA should be considering its decision. The current purpose is to obtain additional information as necessary for the purposes of seeker review, particularly the information to be included in the FEIS for the finding statement by the planning board and the ZBA. And again, the ZBA, before they act on the application, they will have to adopt the finding statement. And that also applies to the Board of Trustees. And there are other agencies outside the village that have to make similar decisions. So that's it in a nutshell. Just to ask you to think about the variances and to ask questions or make comments on the application so that the issues can be addressed in the FEIS. Liz, did you have anything to add?
Thank you.
You know, we prepared a resolution adopting comments, which I submitted to the board, outlining just what John had said. Some of the comments are with respect to the size of the building, the density variance request, making the units smaller, the different types of housing proposed, and the differences between the types of housing, the impacts, about parking, and there's others listed in there. And I know some of the board members might have questions about those specific comments, and if you want to make any changes, now would be the time to talk to you, John, about that.
So we don't, it's not necessary to read your whole resolution
No,
into the
yeah.
record, just because we're going to adopt
If
it.
you have any comments, I know,
Right,
board-
Val had some
board,
comments.
has some.
Right, so Val?
I did. One of the points was also the FEMA failure to acknowledge the FEMA restrictions. DS proposes enclosed amenity space below the base flood elevation, but does not sufficiently analyze the legal limitations imposed by FEMA floodplain regulations. So what I'm getting to is that here we are with the village building inspector serves as our floodplain administrator and is federally mandated to enforce these standards and is not authorized to approve or certify occupancy for a structure that fails to comply. So this is a question I have is, how is this project being proposed as non-FEMA compliant?
Well, that's a good question, and that's one of the variances that they're requesting, and it is certainly appropriate for the board to ask the applicant to justify their request for that relief.
Correct, because this is not a village criteria, this is a federal criteria. And so how is this village board supposed to comment on something which is governed by a federal agency?
Well, the board, the village, many boards implement the policies of FEMA. So the village is ultimately responsible for following the FEMA guidelines. So it is an applicant has the right to ask for variance relief, and this is a little bit different because, as you pointed out, there are federal requirements, and it's not only the relief that they're requesting, and I think you've alluded to it, is what impact will it have on the village's good standing, if you will, under the FEMA program. So it is a big issue. There are issues with all of the variances they're asking for. This may be one of the biggest ones because of that, the fact that it is governed by the federal government. But we have, on behalf of the planning board, we are preparing a separate comment letter. And we go into a lot of detail on that particular issue and point out requirements, specific requirements for under the FEMA guidelines. Beyond just the fact that they're asking to include an enclosed area below base flood elevation.
So are you referring to the dry waterproofed areas, Val?
Right, there's over 800 square feet being proposed below the floodplain. And that's a consideration, is how do you bypass a FEMA requirement?
Well,
Or how would the village be able to bypass that?
Or what the impacts would be with doing that.
Right, I think it's asking the questions to put the applicant on the line to answer these questions in the context of the FEMA, the secret process, without judging whether it's appropriate or not.
So can we just amend our resolution to reflect that question as well, to enhance that number? It's number 6, I think. Or number 5, sorry, about base flood elevation. But maybe we can enhance it to have board member Florio's comments included in the proposed resolution. So you would adopt it tonight as amended to include his comments. Is that good?
Yes. Notations which I have, Liz, are consistent with everything that you've made or outlined in the memo. I had a care and concern about insufficient environmental remediation. Quickly, I took some notes. While the site is known to contain hazardous substances and is enrolled in the New York State Brownfield Cleanup Program, the DEIS does not include a phase 2 environmental site assessment or clearly defined remediation plan. Key components missing include the following: dust and airborne particulate mitigation protocols, dewatering and groundwatering management during excavation, a site-specific construction health and safety plan. Without these elements, a DEIS does not adequately protect the public health or address the foreseeable impacts to nearby residential buildings during site disturbance. So I felt that inclusion of the phase 2 environmental site assessment is critical to evaluate the actual extent of contamination at the site, particularly given that 44 Long Island Avenue was a Superfund cleanup site. And although it may not be a requirement for a phase 2, I feel that that's essential for the public to be aware, and that there be more transparency to this project in terms of health, safety, and welfare of the construction protocol.
Right.
The question just also earlier.
It would be appropriate to add that to your memo too. But be aware that there's a parallel process through the Brownfield program where they will be conducting supplemental investigations, which will identify what additional remediation they have to undertake.
Right. And I had another final comment. The proposal includes converting the adjacent lot at 5 Bridge Street into exclusive off-site parking for the development. But the DEIS does not analyze the resulting loss of a longstanding public parking area. No mitigation is proposed, and no study is offered to assess the cumulative effects on parking availability, traffic flow, or access for other downtown businesses. The lack of impact of this assessment is a significant oversight, my opinion, particularly given the precedent it could set for future development to privatize public assets. So the
Right.
parking, the omission of the impact analysis for the loss of public parking is another consideration. And
Right.
You addressed that though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been an issue right from the beginning. That was included in the scope, and we've had comments back and forth with the applicant where they essentially refused to address the issue. So it's my understanding they'll be out there this weekend to do parking counts, to do the study that we asked a year ago. But this is more closely tied to this board's jurisdiction because they're actually asking for a variance to use that lot for their parking.
Right. We're not to comment on the actual physicality of the application, but I do have one final comment. And this was apparent within that report is while the report attempts to reference other developments within the village, this is in context to the overdevelopment. While the report attempts to reference other developments within the village, it fails to supply a detailed comparative analysis that considers parcel size, context, zoning constraints, or precedent-setting implications. The absence of this analysis leaves the claim of compatibility with the village fabric unsupported. So I feel that the applicant has lack of justification for the scale of the overdevelopment, and if they could produce something to that effect, it would be helpful to know.
Agree 100%.
So then what we'll do is if the board is amenable, we'll add board member Florio's comments to this resolution and, it'll be adopted with his comments.
That's good.
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Does anyone else have any other comments or question?
I have one.
Sure.
I didn't see any provision for, during construction, during excavation, if there's an environmental issue that was found that was not known before, how are they going to address that? If something like that comes up, because you never know really what's underground. We have an idea, but there's, you never know.
Again, that's a legitimate issue. They did have a contingency plan as a part of the appendices of the DEIS, but it's kind of a general boilerplate. And the DEC, it's not like they're off doing this on their own. They're in the brownfield cleanup program, and it will be supervised and is being supervised by the DEC.
Okay. Ongoing during the entire project.
Correct.
Okay.
Anyone else? Alex, you have any comments or questions? Okay, I guess we're good.
Yes.
Anything else, Liz? No? Okay, so could I have a motion to adopt the resolution adopting comments to the DEIS as an avowed agency pursuant to secret for 7 and 11 Bridge Street, incorporating member Val Florio's comments?
I'll second it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Thank you.
Could I have a motion to close the public hearing for the May 2025 zoning board of appeals meeting? Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Thank you. Bye, thank you.
All like.
Yes.